The air shifted the moment my name hit those glowing screens. Gasps cut through the hum of polite conversation. Champagne flutes froze midair. Donors craned their necks to confirm what they'd just read. And then, every pair of eyes landed on me. For years, I had slipped unnoticed through these rooms. Tonight, I was the epicenter. I felt the weight of their stares, but instead of shrinking, I straightened. Shoulders back. Chin lifted. If they wanted a spectacle, I'd give them one. The first voice to break the silence was my father's. He strode across the room, his expression a practiced mask of composure, though I caught the flicker of shock in his eyes. "Julie," he said warmly, too warmly. "Why don't we step outside for a moment?" Translation: How dare you blindside me in front of donors? I didn't move. No need, father. Everyone has questions. Why not answer them here? A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Cameras flashed. The journalists I'd invited were scribbling furiously. Caroline was next. She approached with that flawless smile, the one she used when sealing charity deals. But up close, her lips were tight, her eyes cold. "Well," she said sweetly, "you've certainly kept yourself busy. Building an empire behind our backs? That must have been exhausting." I tilted my head. Not exhausting. Liberating. Her smile faltered. And then came Matthew. He didn't bother with smiles. His face was red, his fists clenched. "You liar," he hissed, loud enough for the nearest guests to hear. "You've been undermining us this whole time, haven't you? Using our resources, our contacts." Correction, I cut in. My voice was calm, steady, carrying just enough for the crowd to hear. "You've been using mine. Red Cannon funded projects you paraded as your own. Red Cannon kept the Kensington name afloat while you played at leadership. Tonight, the truth simply caught up. The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. And I watched as donors, the same ones who had once ignored me, shifted their gaze. Some nodded subtly, as if piecing together a puzzle they hadn't realized was missing. Others studied me with new interest, seeing not the overlooked daughter but the architect of an empire. Matthew sputtered, pointing a finger at me like a child caught in a lie. "You're trying to destroy this family." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "No, Matthew. I'm trying to stop this family from destroying me." The crowd erupted with whispers. Phones buzzed again as the story spread like wildfire beyond these walls. And through it all, I felt something I hadn't in years. Power. Not hidden, not borrowed, not conditional. Mine. Out in the open. My father leaned closer, his voice low, just for me. "You have no idea what you've done tonight." I met his eyes. "On the contrary, I know exactly what I've done." He held my gaze for a long moment, the mask slipping just enough for me to see the storm brewing beneath. Then he turned, summoning his practiced charm for the crowd. "Let's all congratulate Julie on her success," he said smoothly, though his jaw was tight. A Kensington achievement, indeed. The crowd clapped politely, though the energy was fractured, uncertain. Some applauded out of loyalty to him, others because they already sensed where the wind was blowing. But none of that mattered. Because tonight, for the first time, I wasn't clapping for anyone else. I was standing in my own storm, unshaken, unhidden, unafraid. And while my family scrambled to rewrite the narrative, I realized something chillingly clear. This was only the beginning. The gala ended in chaos. Photographers swarmed the exit, shoving cameras in my face. "Julie, how long have you been running Red Cannon? Did your family know? Are you leaving the Kensington group?" Questions tumbled over each other like a wave. I could barely hear through the pounding in my chest. But I didn't flinch. I kept walking, steady heels on marble, letting the cameras catch every angle. Because tonight, I wasn't hiding anymore. Behind me, Matthew was shouting at a reporter, his voice shrill with desperation. Caroline slipped into the car before anyone could corner her, her smile frozen into something brittle. My father followed last, waving stiffly at the press, his charm stretched thin. The ride home was suffocating. No one spoke at first. The silence was thick, broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional flash of headlights across my father's face. His jaw was clenched, his hand tapping impatiently against the leather armrest. Finally, he spoke. "You humiliated us tonight." His voice was low, controlled. The kind of tone he used when he was furious but wanted to pretend otherwise. I met his gaze in the rearview mirror. I told the truth. "If that humiliates you, maybe you should ask why." Caroline snapped, her composure cracking. "You blindsided us. Do you have any idea how donors will react? They'll think we're fractured, unstable. They'll think I cut in, that I'm capable. And they'll be right." Matthew leaned forward, his voice shaking. "This isn't over. You can't just walk in, steal the spotlight, and pretend you're not part of this family. Red Cannon belongs to us too. You used our name, our connections." I turned to face him, my words sharp as glass. "No, Matthew. You used mine. Every deal you bragged about, Red Cannon funded it. Every project you claimed credit for, Red Cannon executed it. The only reason the Kensington name isn't a laughingstock is because I was propping it up from the shadows." The silence that followed was deafening. Caroline looked away. My father's tapping hand stilled. Matthew's face twisted into something ugly, something dangerous. When the car finally pulled up to the estate, I didn't wait for them. I stepped out, my dress still gleaming under the porch lights, my pulse steady. Inside, the staff avoided my eyes. Whispers followed me down the hall. Already, the story was spreading, reshaping the house I'd grown up in. For once, it wasn't about Caroline's glamour or Matthew's bluster. It was about me. And yet, as I closed my bedroom door behind me, I felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders. The freedom. The exposure. The war I'd just declared without saying the words. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone buzzing with notifications, journalists requesting interviews, investors reaching out, strangers flooding social media with praise. But I knew better than to get comfortable. For every cheer, there would be a backlash. For every door that opened, another would slam. And my family? They wouldn't forgive or forget. They'd strike back. I leaned against the headboard, letting the hum of the phone fill the silence. The world finally knew my name, my empire, my power. And tomorrow, I'd find out just how far my family would go to take it back. By morning, the world had changed. When I pulled back the curtains, reporters were already gathered outside the gates. Satellite vans lined the street. Photographers stood on tiptoe, lenses trained on the house like hunters waiting for prey. For years, no one had cared whether I even showed up to these events. Now, the world couldn't get enough of me. My phone buzzed nonstop. Emails from journalists, requests for interviews, invitations to panels, congratulatory notes from people I hadn't heard from in years. But the messages that caught my eye weren't from strangers. They were from donors. "I would love to discuss future opportunities with Red Cannon." Impressive reveal last night. "Our firm is eager to explore partnerships directly with you. You have our full support moving forward." One after another, doors I had once been locked out of swung wide open. But every new email was also a warning. If the donors and investors were flocking to me, that meant they were slipping away from the Kensington Group. My family would see it as betrayal. And betrayal to them was war. I didn't have to wait long to feel the heat. At noon, I passed the study on my way downstairs. The heavy oak doors were shut, but voices leaked through, sharp, frantic. My father's, steady but clipped. Caroline's, shrill with panic. Matthew's, loud and venomous. They were holding a strategy meeting. And, of course, I wasn't invited. I leaned closer, the old habit of eavesdropping tugging at me. "She blindsided us." Caroline's voice cut through. "Do you realize how this looks? Donors are calling me, asking if we've lost control of our own bloodline." "Control can be regained," my father said firmly. "We've weathered scandals before. We'll weather this." Matthew snarled. "Not if she's holding the purse strings." Half of what we've been bragging about for years was secretly funded by her. Now everyone knows it. The minute she pulls the plug, we're exposed. "Then we make sure she doesn't pull the plug," my father replied. A pause. "Then Caroline, softer now, and how exactly do you plan to stop her?" I could almost picture him rubbing his temples, the way he always did when cornered. "Julie has always wanted to belong," he said finally. This is a tantrum. We remind her where her loyalties lie, and when that fails, we make it impossible for her to stand alone. Matthew barked a laugh. She's not standing alone, father. She's standing on a $367 million empire. That's more than any of us. You think she'll crawl back? I froze, my hand tightening on the doorknob. Silence followed, heavy and uneasy. Then my father's voice again, colder this time. Then we take it from her. The words were like a blade. I backed away from the door before I could hear more, my pulse racing. They weren't just angry. They were plotting. Already working on ways to strip me of what I'd built, to twist the story back in their favor. For so long, I'd let their schemes dictate the shape of my life. Not anymore. If they wanted a war, I was done fighting from the shadows. This time, I'd meet them head-on. The attack came faster than I expected. By morning, the glossy business blogs had their headlines ready. Red Cannon's mysterious founder questioned, did Julie Kensington steal from her own family? Kensington Group distances itself from daughter's rogue empire. Construction heiress or corporate thief. It was textbook Kensington damage control, controlled leaks, planted doubts, whispers disguised as insider reports. They didn't even try to be subtle. I scrolled through the articles, my hands steady, though my stomach coiled tight. I knew their playbook too well. First, they'd paint me as unstable. Then, disloyal. Finally, incompetent. By the end, they'd try to convince the world that Red Cannon was a fraud I'd stitched together with stolen scraps. What they didn't realize was that I had prepared for this years ago. The minute Red Cannon turned its first profit, I built walls. Clean books, airtight contracts, meticulous records of every deal. No Kensington fingerprints anywhere. Still, the smear campaign worked fast. My phone buzzed with nervous messages. Julie, just checking, should we postpone the investor call? Need reassurance. Are you exposed legally? The Kensington statement looks bad. Should we be worried? They wanted me shaken. They wanted me scrambling. Instead, I sent one reply, short and sharp. Asterisk Red Cannon is stronger than ever. Watch the news tonight, asterisk. Then I called my legal team. By the afternoon, my lawyers filed a cease and desist against the Kensington Group for defamation and interference. At the same time, my PR firm released a 20-page dossier, contracts, photos, timelines, and audited financials, proving Red Cannon had been built without a cent or a contact from my family. I didn't just defend myself. I went on offense. By evening, the media storm had flipped. Julie Kensington produces records exposing Red Cannon's independence. Receipts show $367 million empire built outside Kensington Group's shadow. Did the family need Julie more than she needed them? The photographs I'd chosen, me on construction sites, hard hat on, standing with teams of workers, spread like wildfire. For the first time, the public wasn't seeing me as a Kensington offshoot. They were seeing me as a leader. I could almost hear Caroline's teeth grinding from across town. But the real test wasn't the media. It was the investors. That night, I joined a video call with 20 of them, faces in little squares, brows furrowed with worry. For a moment, the weight of it hit me. These were people who had put their faith, their money, their reputations into Red Cannon. If I faltered now, everything could crumble. I leaned in, looking directly into the camera. You've seen the headlines. You've heard the noise. But here's the truth, Red Cannon isn't under attack because it's weak. It's under attack because it's strong. Strong enough to make people afraid. Strong enough to stand on its own. And if you stand with me, I promise you, we're only getting started. For a second, silence. Then, one by one, nods filled the screen. When the call ended, my chest ached with adrenaline. I had won the first round. But I also knew this was just the beginning. Because if there was one thing my family hated more than losing control, it was losing control to me. And they weren't done fighting. Not by a long shot. The first strike hadn't broken me, and that made them dangerous. By midweek, the smear campaign had fizzled, replaced with something sharper, colder. My lawyer called me first thing in the morning. "They've filed suit," she said flatly. I closed my eyes. On what grounds? Intellectual property theft. They're claiming Red Cannon was seeded with Kensington resources, contacts, capital, proprietary data. They want damages. And she hesitated. They're filing an injunction to freeze Red Cannon's accounts until the matter is resolved. For a second, I couldn't breathe. A freeze meant payroll would stop. Projects would stall. Hundreds of employees would wake up wondering if their livelihoods were secure. And that, of course, was the point. They don't want to win, I muttered. They want to choke me. My lawyer's voice hardened. Then we make sure they choke first. I'll file for dismissal, but you need to brace yourself. This will get ugly. I hung up, my stomach tight but my spine straight. If my family thought I'd crumble under pressure, they'd forgotten who built Red Cannon brick by brick. By noon, the fallout had begun. Rumors swirled that Red Cannon was unstable. Contractors called, nervous. A supplier asked for early payment. My CFO texted me, "We need to reassure the team before panic sets in." I gathered my leadership staff that afternoon. The room buzzed with tension, faces pale, eyes darting. They were looking to me for answers. I stood at the head of the table, hands flat against the polished wood. Yes, they filed suit. Yes, they want to freeze our accounts. But here's what they don't understand: we prepared for this. Every contract, every invoice, every blueprint is ours, clean and traceable. They can throw mud, but they can't bury us. The room steadied. Shoulders lifted. Someone clapped softly, then another, until the tension cracked into something stronger, resolve. After the meeting, I sat alone in my office, watching the city lights blink awake. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel the weight of it. Not just the lawsuits or the headlines, but the fact that my own blood was trying to strangle the life out of something I'd built. A soft knock broke the silence. My CFO Daniel stepped in. "Julie, there's something you should know," he said, lowering his voice. "One of our major investors just called. They said the Kensingtons are reaching out directly, trying to lure them back with promises of exclusivity and access to government contracts." I clenched my jaw. Classic move. Not just breaking me, but poaching the people who believed in me. "Did they bite?" I asked. Daniel shook his head. "Not yet. But the Kensingtons are dangling big numbers." I leaned back, mind racing. They wanted to starve me of cash flow, smear my name, strip me of allies. But if they thought I'd play defense forever, they were wrong. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to win. That night, I drafted a plan. A move that would shift the battlefield entirely, away from their lawsuits and whispers. A move so bold, it would force the world to choose between me and them. Because if my family wanted war, I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to change the rules of the game.